cow, and it's not just a cow. Yeah, but if you don't mind, click on got it so we can record this. It's not just a cow though.
A Hindu cow.
Yes, exactly. So in the Hindu religion, and actually several others, the cow is a sacred animal. And what you see are pictures of the Hindu deities on this cow. And so they believe that this is a sacred animal because it provides everything that's necessary to sustain life. And so in India and other countries, you'll see cows literally walking down the middle of the street because they are revered. And it's about recognizing the value of that sacred part of our world. And I want to suggest to you that
I've seen the needle and the damage done. I've seen the needle and the damage.
So I want to suggest that there are, I don't know where my other words are. That's weird. That we will, in fact, there's 3 sacred cows. We started it at 10, and we will, in fact, adjourn at 11:30. So those are the 3 sacred cows that are on the screen. And I invite you to turn off and place out of sight your cell phone and maybe your computer. Yeah, probably not, because since we're on Zoom, you're going to need that. But the point is, you deserve a break. And so I invite you to spend this next hour and 10, 20 minutes really focused on what we're doing here as opposed to those other devices. And you deserve it.
I've seen the needle and the damage done, a little part of it in everyone.
So that's a picture of me from last week. No, it's not. It's not. That's about 1981. That's me sitting at the desk of my second job in the behavioral health field at the Hodak Community Crisis Center. And I thought I had arrived. I mean, it was the coolest job. They hired me as a counselor, and eventually I worked up to being the clinical director. But like many of you, I just kind of got into this work because I just wanted to help people. And so today, what I do is really orient towards facilitating personal, professional, and community development. And I kind of took the traditional route, went to college, started off in experimental or physiological psychology, and then moved over into community psych, became a licensed professional counselor. And today I'm a certified professional counseling supervisor as well. And I've spent about 40 years in this field with kind of one foot in the behavioral health world, another foot in the peer services world, and then you have to pick to move 3 legs. A third focus has been in the clinical world. And so it's really given me many opportunities to develop services that aren't just focused on helping people get started in their recovery journeys, but it's about moving downstream and figuring out how do we help people in those middle and latter stages of recovery.
I sing the song because I love the man. I know that some of you don't understand. Milk, but to keep from running out. I've seen the needle and the damage done, a little part of it in everyone.
And so this is my why. And it really is about the fact that 31 years ago, a group of people came to me and said, George, you're pretty good at doing what you do. We think you can be better. And that led to the decision to stop using alcohol and all illicit drugs. So I'm a person in long-term recovery. And that really is what projected my career beyond any expectations that I had in terms of what I would be able to accomplish. And a large part of that is because of many of the people you see on this screen providing me with both the support and the challenge necessary to believe that I could do something more than what I was doing up to that point in my life and beyond. So I don't know if you caught that lyric in Neil Young's Needle and the Damage Done, but he says, I know that some of you don't understand milk blood in order to keep from running out. What do you think he's referring to? Anybody got any ideas?
George, what exactly is your question there about?
What's Neil Young referring to when he says, I know that some of you don't understand milk blood in order to keep from running out?
Isn't it kind of like in his reference to using drugs, something about the high, like something around his drug use and the high that it provides him, like something with the blood and the needle and that time frame around, something of that nature?
Yes. So Neil Young wrote this song in 1969 after the guitarist and one of his main roadies died from heroin overdoses. And what that line is specifically referring to is for people who use IV drugs, heroin among others. You don't just stick the needle in your arm and push the plunger down and you're off to nirvana. Rather, you stick the needle in and you pull the plunger back in order to see if you're in a vein. And if you are, then you push the plunger in. If you're not, you pull the needle out and you try to hit a vein. That's specifically what he is referring to. Milk blood in order to keep from running out. So it's amazing to me that at the young age of 17, 18, Neil Young understood that drug use is so much more than just the high. It's about the routine. And it's about the fact that somebody had to teach you how to use those drugs. So this is my website, and there is a really handy tool that's available on the homepage called the Brief Opioid Overdose Knowledge Questionnaire. If you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who uses opioids, I highly recommend downloading this resource and just having a conversation with them. Even, and I'm not talking just about illegal or illicit opiates. I'm talking about any sort of narcotic that's a painkiller. Have a conversation around, are you aware of the overdose potential and what should someone do should you start to go into an overdose? And this is a great tool for beginning to have those somewhat difficult conversations.
A line in that song, and I think a lot of people know. I'm guilty though. I was on.
Oh, I want to invite you to open up a web browser. You can either do it on your phone or on your computer and go to responseware.com. That's RESPONSEWARE.com. And when you get there, shout out Eureka.
I can't find my server, Ed, so I don't know. Maybe I'm not. I can't.
Can't find it?
It's telling me that my server can't find it. It's, hold on, let me try. I think Ed's got it.
Excellent. So you should see a screen that says enter as guest. If you press that button, it's going to ask for a session ID and just type in ethic, ETHIC.
Session does not exist.
And then you should get a message that says poll is not launched.
Enter as guest.
Let me try again on my personal phone.
Okay.
Log your smart, responseword.com.
Can't get in. I'm in.
All right, Ed's in. Do we both need to be in, George?
Yes, please.
Okay.
That way you both can answer the poll question.
Okay. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to be patient with me.
Not a problem.
I'm not as tech savvy as some of y'all.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason to have kids and grandkids around.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
No, I'm not. Samantha, are you able to get into ResponseWare? Good.
I keep typing it wrong. That's my problem.
Yeah, typing's a challenge.
Let's try again.
Go ahead, make my day.
So a little bit of a pop quiz.
Okay, so once I do that, then what do I do?
Enter as guest, press
Okay.
that button,
It says session ID.
enter session ID ETHIC. And you should see what's on the screen.
Eureka.
Excellent. So the way it's going to work is I'm going to pop up some questions. Actually, just going to start with one and then respond by pressing the appropriate button. And what will happen is your name and your answer and your social security number will pop up on our screen.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry,
You happy.
be happy.
George, you're a kidder, George.
Yeah, no, we won't see your name or your social security number. However, we will see everyone's answers recorded anonymously.
Okay.
Okay. So here's our first question. Oh, got to get rid of some boxes so I can. Alex and Jamie are siblings traveling together in France on a summer vacation from college. One night, while staying alone in a cabin near the beach, they decided it would be interesting and fun if they tried making love. At the very least, it would be a new experience for each of them. Alex is already taking birth control pills, but Jamie uses a condom too, just to be safe. They both enjoy making love, but decide to never do it again. They keep that night a special secret, which makes them feel even closer to each other over the years. Do you think it's acceptable for two consenting adults who happen to be siblings to make love? If you would, just choose an answer.
Acceptable. So that's really an opinion question.
It certainly is an opinion. Yeah, about 6 more seconds to answer. Our survey says, well, what do you know? Everybody says, no, that's just not acceptable. Nice. So I want to make 3 points about ethical decisions. So this is a question that Jonathan Haidt has been asking for about the last 18 years. And he's ask it of people on just about all the continents on Earth, and 69% of the folks responded no, it's not appropriate. Now, the question then, or the point then, is that morality is something that begins with culture-based affect or feelings. You notice culture is in green there, so you want to write that into your journal. And it's about the fact that this is an instant and automatic judgment. If you notice on the screen, there is a person on the back of an elephant, and I'm going to use that as a metaphor for how this process works, thinking and feeling. And according to Daniel Kahneman, this instant and automatic judgment is what the elephant does, or what Kahneman refers to as system one. So why or how did you come to that answer? Well, the interesting thing is we actually confabulate, which is a fancy word that simply means we invent reasons on the fly. We come up with cognitive ideas that explains it. And in Daniel Kahneman's system, this is the system two. And these are cognitions or thoughts that are invented after you've made your answer, after you come to your decision. So refuting the reasons people give for their decisions typically doesn't change people's minds. And in this scenario in particular, people will kind of stutter and stammer and say things like, well, but she might get pregnant. Well, no, she's on birth control. He's using a condom. Well, but it just doesn't feel right. Well, okay. And so the point is, if you argue against a position, it doesn't diminish the cause of that position, which is system one, the elephant. If all we address is what came up after the judgment was made. In other words, if we address all those cognitive reasons, it doesn't address the more significant visceral reaction or emotion, or what I would call the mind that's actually behind what that judgment was based upon. And again, this comes from Jonathan Haidt. He's got several books out, but this one is from The Happiness Hypothesis. So those are the three main points. So to bring it more around to the cognitive approach, Daniel Kahneman has proposed this idea, and we'll come back to the elephant and the rider in just a moment, that really all of our thinking contains two different systems within the mind. And he refers specifically to the brain, but I'm going to extend it to talk about this in terms of the mind. And system one, or the elephant, is the fast thinking. It's based on intuitive affect, it's automatic, and it happens often at an unconscious level. So where did your decision about the siblings, where did that come from? And my guess is, for some of you, you felt it in your gut. It might have been in other parts of your body, but it wasn't in your brain. And again, that's part of what forms that other side of silence, is being aware of how your body is reacting to things. That's the elephant in the room, so to speak. The second system, or system two, is the rider. And it's a more slow thinking, deliberate, controlled process. And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes not necessarily conscious. But it's these two systems working together that produce decisions. We want to spend a little time unpacking that today. So what's the first thing you think of when a peer that you're serving says, I only had one drink. Well, maybe it's something like, so maybe that's your automatic reaction. Well, here's what I want you to think about in the future when somebody says that. I want you to have,
Hey, bud, let's party.
I want you to have this image in your mind. So everybody standing in that line may have just had one drink. Might have been a really big drink, but nevertheless, it might have just been one drink. I don't know what that guy with the camera is doing there. He's just kind of checking things out. But so how many of you on the left-hand side see the word liar? L-I-A-R. Okay, I see you. Do you also see, looks like probably a man wearing glasses? Ah, nice, Samantha. So here are his glasses. I think y'all can see my pointer. Here's his nose. Here's his mouth, and here's his chin going down to his neck, and then. So the point is, you really can change your perspective, and it's relevant for us to be able to do that. Oh, sure, I'll go back. Oh, there we go. So can you see both liar, which kind of the environment was set up so that when you saw that picture, you more than likely saw the word liar. But now you can toggle back and forth. You can see the word liar, but you can also see the man with the glasses. That's where we want to get to with ethical decision making. Oh, the slide before this one. That one. Is that what you're looking for? Good. So it's about really being able to switch and consider different worldviews, different ways of understanding people's perspectives, and to be able to bring that into the conversation and to validate those points of view without judgment. And therein lies the real challenge here. So, what works with decision making? Well, we'll go back to this elephant with the rider on it. First step is to motivate the elephant. Do that by appreciating and validating the other person's worldview and their values. And I would suggest this is probably the hardest part of the process. And then direct the rider by checking reference materials, such as your code of ethics, your policies and procedures, what laws are relevant. And then thirdly, shape the path that the rider and the elephant are going down. And I suggest that would involve developing a catalog of organizational practices and ethics, what I call a COPE. And we'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. So, over the course of this session and the next two, there are several objectives. I'd like for you to be able to explain the fundamental principles of ethical decision-making from moral psychology. And we can check that one off because that's what we just covered. Secondly, I'd like for you to be able to conduct vital incident review sessions using an ethical decision-making worksheet that builds multidisciplinary collaboration among professionals with varied ethical behavior standards. It's great if everybody we came into contact with and everybody that we work with was a peer service provider. Most of us, however, work with clinicians. Many of us work with correctional officers. or community supervision officers, or housing providers, or recovery residence providers. So it's about recognizing that there may be other disciplines that are involved, and many of those disciplines have their own code of ethics. So within our organization, how do you work with a psychiatrist and a psychologist and a counselor and a social worker and other peer recovery support service providers? Well, that's where the third objective comes into play, because it's ideally a way for you to incorporate this catalog of organizational practices and ethics into your organization's new employee orientation and your ongoing in-service trainings. So the ethics becomes a common topic that gets discussed on a regular basis. And not just the, kind of flowery, this is what ethics are, and here's the code, and don't ever break the code, but real world dilemmas that are faced and addressed. And this catalog is a way of putting those together into a manual that you can really say, here's how we do things around here. So go back to your device that you had logged into responder.com. And if you would, indicate where your primary work setting is. Do you work in a recovery residence? Do you work in an outpatient treatment program? Maybe you work in an inpatient program, including a hospital, or a prevention program, or a peer recovery community organization, or maybe you're unemployed and you've got resumes. And actually, no, you don't need copies of these slides because every word of the content is in the journal.
I found my thrill. Oh, living here.
About 4 more seconds. Our survey says, okay, so everybody is working in peer recovery community organizations. You've got one person that works in recovery res, and actually that would be me. Next poll question. So given that everybody works in a peer recovery community organization, my guess is that you all are certified peer specialists. Well, do we have any certified counselors in the group? Or maybe you're a licensed non-medical professional. That would be a licensed counselor, social worker, marriage and family therapist, etc. Or maybe you're a licensed medical professional, or maybe you're a journalist or a reporter, or maybe you're none of these. So Samantha, what's a CPC?
Certified peer counselor.
Ah, gotcha. Very good. All right, so we do have a varied set of professionals represented in our group today. That's good to know. So another poll question. What do you spend the most time on your job doing? Is it direct services? Is it clinical supervision, or what I would refer to as peer performance support? Or is it program administration? Or do you spend it mostly goofing off or in meetings, which some would say is the same as C? Or maybe you spend most of your time doing something else. About 5 more seconds. Our survey says, oh, I don't know what happened to the results. Well, I see it on my phone anyway. So well, 25% do direct services, another quarter does clinical supervision. We have some folks that goof off, and then we've got some folks that are doing mostly something else. Good to know. Oh, there's the results. Good. So, does your agency have a set of written ethical behavior standards for staff, volunteers, clients, peers, or residents? And your answer choices are either yes, no, or don't know, not sure. Nice.
I'm gonna go call the psychic hotline. They'll know what to do.
Yeah, all else failed. Good. So everybody has that set of ethical behavior standards.
I'm gonna go call the psychic hotline. They'll know what to do.
I don't know why I did that. So, how many hours of the last 12 months spent in formal agency-led discussions about ethical issues? Maybe it's 0. Maybe it's 1 to 2 hours. Maybe it's 3 to 5 hours. Maybe it's 6 to 8 hours. Maybe it's 9 to 10. Or maybe at least 1 hour a month, 11 or more.
Don't jive me.
Looks like pretty much everybody is responded. Our survey says, nice. So 75% have spent probably at least an hour or more in agency-led discussions. Very nice.
Really.
Well, so this cartoon is what I find is very common in many organizations. The caption down at the bottom says, I don't know how it started either. All I know is that it's part of our corporate culture. Everybody wears a funny hat. Well, and in many organizations, that's the way ethics and the culture itself evolves and develops. So, one final question. I am 100% certain that my agency will back me in the ethical decisions that I make today. Would you answer that yes, no, or don't know, and I'm not sure?
Who are you then?
The fly in the ointment, Hans. The monkey in the wrench. The pain in the ass.
You have me at a loss. You know my name, but who are you? Just another American who saw too many movies as a child. Another orphan of a bankrupt culture. This is John Wayne, Rambo, Marshall Dillon.
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequence shots.
Yeah, classic movie. So interesting. So 2/3 are 100% certain, and then a third, yeah, not so much. Or I'm sorry, it's the other way around. A third are absolutely certain. 2/3, yeah, not so sure. And believe you me, in the 20 years that I've been doing this training, that is a very common response set. And I think it's directly related to the previous question about how many hours per month are spent in agency-led formal discussions. So anybody recognize that old fellow there on the left? Yeah, well, that's Aristotle. He wrote the book on ethics. I mean, literally is ethics. That's the title of it. And if you're really interested in Stoicism, that you might refer back to that. But those are sort of the basis for Western culture's view of ethics and ethical decision making.
And now for something completely different.
Now, so for the rest of our, well, about the next 20 minutes or so, I want to engage you all in what's referred to in liberating structures as a 1-2-4-all exercise. This is a way to simultaneously generate ideas and questions and suggestions from everybody who is participating today. So the way this works is, I want to invite you to spend 1 minute right now, write down an ethical dilemma that you are aware of. And we'll take about a minute to allow you to do that. Everybody got one? We've got one, say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it might be quite atrocious.
I don't know, George, I'm stumped.
Okay, well, that's all right. Anybody have an ethical dilemma?
Guess I could make one up.
Sure.
You know, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I think sometimes for me, you may hear something that, you know, a client will tell you, or recovery will tell you something that a coach said to them that maybe felt a little bit not in the way that we try to deliver messages.
Mhm.
And the ethical dilemma for me is, you know, what's the best way for me to handle that? Do I kind of talk to the coach to kind of find out what happened? Do I mention it to their supervisor? You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, you know, things are said that don't really happen. So you can't just assume that something you heard was true. So you don't want to get someone in trouble if it was unjust. Do you know what I mean? So those cause some dilemmas for me.
Okay, so what the dilemma is, a peer tells you some information.
All right, I got one, George. Now that we're talking, this actually happened. So
Okay, good. Write it down.
I work at the New Haven Recovery Community Center, but a lot of people get my number, and people I've never spoken to before. So somebody called, left a message on my machine saying they saw one of our coaches in the ER. This person has been a coach with them for a while, but ever since they relapsed, this coach wasn't available to them, wasn't respectful to them, yada, yada, yada. They were requesting another coach, and they asked on the phone that I not say anything about their complaining of this particular coach. So having been on the both sides of that, knowing that, you know, I've been the one being complained about, or I've been the one that has heard things complained, rather than I called the supervisor of the, not the high supervisor, but the administrative supervisor of the recovery coach program. I let him know that I got a message that there was some kind of complaint that they would like to speak to someone, but I don't need to know any of the details because I don't know what's true and what's not true, and it's not important for me to be in the middle of it. And I passed it over to him and to them, and they were very happy that I just let them handle it.
So write down that dilemma.
Write that down.
Write the dilemma down. Don't
Even
want
though
the solution.
Even though I just talked to you and told you the whole thing, you still want me to write it down?
I do want you to write it down.
Okay, okay. I will do that.
Nice. Sam or Samantha, sorry.
Would it be considered an ethical situation if, like, somebody came to you and told you that they had a gun they wanted to pawn and they wanted you to take them to the pawn shop to pawn it for them? Would
Wow.
that be like an ethical thing not to take them?
Write it down. That's a great one.
What do you mean write it down?
I want you to write it down. Write down what you just said.
Okay.
And by the way, is the person who told you that somebody who is currently under criminal justice supervision?
No,
Okay,
but definitely in treatment.
okay. Good. Now, the reason I'm asking you to write it down is because I want you to think about the scenario and avoid thinking about solutions. See, this is where the challenge comes in. And I'm going to ask you to type that into a form that we'll use in subsequent sessions to process how to manage the dilemmas. So I've got one I'll throw out here. One time I was facilitating a recovery group. It was one of the best groups ever. A lot of people sharing and people were connecting with each other very, very deeply. And so at the end, we gathered around, hugged each other, sang Kumbaya, not really Kumbaya, but said our goodbyes. And then the group ended. I wrote out my group notes, turned off all the lights, locked the door, jumped in my car, was driving home. I get to the first red light and I look over and one of the members of my group is standing there. Now you got to understand, it was pouring down rain. It was lightning and thunder. And she was pushing her 2-year-old baby in a baby carriage. And she waves at me. And my agency at the time had a policy that said, no way, no how do you put clients in your personal vehicle. Now we had just left this group. It's storming outside. I'm sitting in my car. She's standing there waiting to cross the road. It's lightning, there's thunder. That was an ethical dilemma.
I would have put her in my car in a hot second, George.
I understand. Avoid discussing solutions at this point.
Okay.
And see how hard this is. I mean, I really want you to kind of connect with what's going on inside of you as we talk about these dilemmas. The tendency is to want to jump to, well, here's the solution. And that discomfort almost makes us say, here's what I would do in order to discharge that negative energy. And so this was before the days of cell phones. So I'm sitting there in that car and I'm trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do? Because I know my agency policy is do not put anybody in your personal vehicle. And And so I'm not gonna tell you what I did. I'll tell you later, not in this section. But I can tell you that my supervisor said, George, if you had put that woman in your car, what do you think would have happened if as soon as you pulled off, went through that red light, an 18-wheeler was coming the other direction and smashed into your car? And let's just say killed the baby. Yeah. Or what if you put that woman in your car and the baby, took them home, dropped them off, nothing to it. And then by the time you got home, you got a phone call where she called the police and accused you of inappropriate conduct while she was in your car. Yeah. So the real point of this is to say, when we're faced with ethical dilemmas, our kind of instinctual response is to stick a flag in the ground and say, here's what I would do. In other words, we come at it from the visceral, this is what's right versus wrong, without considering all the information that might be relevant to take into consideration. And then once we put that flag in the ground, we look around and say, who agrees with me? And if you agree with me, then you're in my tribe, you're in my camp, you're in my clan, we're good. If you don't agree with me, well, then let's argue about it. Let me tell you why I'm right and see if I can convince you to come over to my tribe. And we will engage in these sorts of, not dialogues, but debates. And part of what I'm trying to encourage you to do is to create the situation where the dialogues can happen, where all ideas are welcome and people really can get in touch with that visceral, value-based sense of beyond what's right and wrong. Here's what the context suggests we think about doing that might lead in a different direction than what our immediate reaction says is the best thing to do. So comments or questions? Any reactions to what I just said?
I actually love what you just said, George. It's so true. I think, we kind of, for me, I go to this place of emotional, and I loved your comments about what you said. It's important to think things through. As you were talking, I'm thinking that's true. I could call a cab or a taxi for her. There are other solutions if I stay away from that emotional piece of I need to be the fixer. So I thought that was really helpful information. I appreciate it very much.
Excellent. Excellent. Any other comments? Well, so had this been a larger group, I would have broken you up into dyads and you would have talked about your dilemma. And again, not talk about the solutions, talk about the dilemma. And then I'd put you into quartets where you would have each person talked about your dilemma with the group and then come up with a team name and a captain and a reporter. But since we've got such a small group, we don't have to do that. So any other dilemmas that have come to mind as we've talked about this that you'd like to kind of throw into the hat for future consideration?
Yeah, I have an ethical dilemma that my name's Ed. I'm a volunteer at CCAR New Haven. And
Good.
this goes back to when I was employed by a university, and oftentimes a student who was of majority age may have had mental issues, may have had drug overdose, may have been hospitalized. And the law does not allow you to tell the parents. And yet you've got I would have the parents on the phone, and I have to make a decision whether to break the law and tell the parents what's going on in hopes that it would make the situation better, or not. And that was always a struggle for me.
So Ed, it was a minor who was divulging information and,
No, not a minor, a person of majority age.
oh, okay, so they were of majority.
Yeah. And they'd be hospitalized, and the parents would call and want to know what was going on with their child.
Gotcha. That's a great one, without a doubt. And legally, can't tell them. And so please write that down. Anything else come up? Well, how about this? Do you ever have any of the folks that you provide services to want your personal cell phone number or want to become your friend on Facebook? Yeah. Again, I'm not going to say yes or no, you should or you shouldn't. But see how that resonates in your body, in your mind. And I can guarantee you there are people who will say, oh, it's absolutely fine. Others who will say it's absolutely never okay. And that's the value of these conversations. Good. So what I propose is that in the journal you received in the email once you register for this session, what you can find is this link to the session 2. Oops, let me go back to the session 2 assignment. Let me just pull that journal up here real quick. So this is where hopefully you've written down your ethical dilemma. And I want to invite you immediately after our session is over, make this a little bit larger. I want to invite you to click on this link and enter in your ethical dilemma. And so it's this form. Click on that link and it'll take you here. We need a team name. What do you think would make a good name for our team today? Throw out some ideas, anybody. How about first responders?
That works.
That's not real sexy, but
I was thinking of early risers in honor of the woman who got up at 7 a.m.
I like it. Perfect. Early risers. So if you don't mind, when you go into this form, type in early risers. Are you okay with me taking a screenshot?
We
And that
are.
means I'll be able to. Yes, now, maybe. Oh no. Okay, I'm back. I'll add that. And then what I'd like you to do is to add your name, which that's optional. If you don't want to, you can leave that blank. And then select the July 7th webinar. And then here's the real meat. I want you to describe your ethical dilemma. So just type it in. And don't worry about punctuation or grammar or spelling, any of that sort of stuff. We can fix all that. Yes, Samantha.
I was wondering, are we doing this part right now? Because I don't get how do I get there.
No, you don't have to do it right now, but
I can do it after.
yes. So
Okay.
journal at 1.8.5.
Thank you.
See it?
Okay.
Good. And Samantha, do you have the journal? Okay, good. All right. So there is also in here a pre-session assignment at 2.0. And what I'm asking you to do is to watch this little less than 5-minute video. And then I'd like for you to journal your top 3 takeaways from the video. So next session, that's what we'll start with, is having you describe what you most learned from the video.
The next thing is until 10:45. We don't have anything else on the calendar, do we?
And the other part of the homework,
Thursday talk topic.
I'd like you to download. All you have to do is click on these links and you can download the ethical decision-making worksheet and the CCAR Code of Ethics and Conduct for Recovery Coach Professionals.
So in the worksheet you sent us, George, all we got to do is click on these 2 tabs and it'll bring up the sheets for us.
That's right. Click on that ethical decision making. Well, you see how it pops up there? Just click on that and it'll automatically open up in your browser. You can download it and then print a copy. And the
Awesome. Thank you.
Same thing with the Code of Ethics.
Awesome.
Good.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. And so, I mean, in session 2, we're going to go through and talk about one or more of the ethical dilemmas that you upload into that form, the ones we've talked about today. And then we'll get to solutions.
Cool.
Good.
Nothing like making us wait, George.
Well, and that's intentional. And the waiting is the hard part, but it's so vital to really being able to kind of sit with that other side of silence, lean into it and learn from it. I guarantee you between now and next month, when we come back to talk about this, you're going to have revelations that you would not have had if we had jumped in and immediately solved the problem. You're probably going to talk to other people and they're going to tell you what you ought to do. Well, kind of push back from that. And if their opinion is different from yours, maybe lean into it and fully understand the other person's worldview and their values. What's that gut sense about for them? Good. Yes.
What day is August 4th?
It should be a Wednesday.
Would it be the same time, George?
Yes, ma'am. So I know, Samantha, that's mighty early. But hopefully it's worth getting up for. So We got about 15 more minutes. I want to do what I call a AAA checkout. Given the time that we've spent here together, what's one thing that you appreciate or liked? Or maybe there's an aha that you had, something that you learned. Or maybe there's something you really anticipate doing that we've talked about. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, George, I really appreciate your sense of humor. I just think it's refreshing and I really enjoy it. And I love that you use music because I facilitate a Recovery on a High Note meeting every Wednesday at 3 where we play a song and we discuss the lyrics. So I love that you use music because music is something that fuels my soul.
Excellent.
But also I really appreciate, I'm a feeler, so I tend to be, I jump to the emotional, and I really love the reminder to just pause, kind of sit with my emotions and try to collect all the information and gather, just step out of that I have to fix it role. And normally I've been really good at that, but just back from vacation and I'm like trying to catch up. And so I'm in that, I just got to take care of business mode. So this was it was good timing for me to just be reminded, one step at a time, pause, everything's going to get done. You don't have to solve everything on your own. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Nice, Rita. Thank you. And I love the fact that you have a recovery group where you take lyrics of songs and sort of decompose them.
Yeah, come check us out some Wednesday at 3. We'd love to have you.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is it online?
It's on the CCAR calendar, virtual meeting calendar, Recovery on a High Note, it's called, 3 o'clock on Wednesdays.
I'll do it.
Thank you, George. You have an aha? I
Yeah, I
appreciate
do.
it. Ed has one too, if you want to do us before you go to Samantha, it's up to you.
Sure, go ahead, Ed.
So I really liked, first of all, I like anything that provokes thinking.
Yeah.
Which this session did. And in particular, the brother and sister, because I responded without thinking. As you put it, it was a gut level response. And although I don't think I've changed my opinion on the outcome, it has given me pause to think about my own decision making and what goes into it. And I appreciate that.
Well, and just know that, 68% just automatically say no, but that leaves 30% that say, yeah, it's okay. Which, it's just kind of interesting to think about that. Most cultures, it's not okay, but not in all. In fact, there are some cultures where, and it's not so much between siblings, but between parents and children or family members and children are part of the growing up ritual. I can't remember the name. There's a South American culture where the belief is that the seed has to be passed from father to son. And around 12 to 13 years of age, there's this transition ceremony. And the son goes into, it's not a sweat lodge, but that's the closest description, for 24 hours. And then the father goes in and there's a ceremony that's conducted and it's just the two of them. And then the father gives the seed to the son and it's done through oral sex. Now it's not sex in the sense of making love, but the ejaculation happens. And so my point there is, and I'm not saying it's okay for siblings to have sex, please. That's obviously not the point of the exercise. But it's that gut visceral reaction. And it's based upon our culture and what our culture says is okay and not. And that's what it's kind of like asking a fish, how's the water? And the fish looks around and says, what's water? That's kind of the way culture is. There's these things that we hold to be absolute true when other cultures think differently about it. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Samantha.
Yes.
Something you appreciated in AHA or something you anticipate doing?
Yeah, well, I kind of appreciated learning the System 1 elephant and System 2 rider because I never knew that. So that was pretty interesting.
Good. Well, there's resources in the journal if you're interested in exploring more.
Oh yeah, I'm looking up all kinds of stuff.
Good. Good. And I'll say that Kahneman and Tversky, theirs is the Western, they're at the forefront of Western thinking on this idea. And they're, I mean, it's really important material. There are indigenous approaches that expand this idea beyond brain to the concept that I've talked about as mind. And it really is the body as well as the environment that we're in that informs how we respond. So we'll get into this a little bit more in later sessions. But I really appreciate the fact that y'all showed up on time, and it was really early for you, Samantha. I appreciate that also. And I really like the fact that there's some diversity here. You're all doing peer services, and it sounds like something you're passionate about. And that's something that I really do appreciate. So with that said, our objectives again, you now understand 3 fundamental principles of ethical decision making from moral psychology. We'll come back next month, and do a vital incident review session, and then talk more about incorporating the catalog of organizational practices and ethics into your agency's new employee orientation and ongoing in-service training. So I invite you to fill out a participant feedback form. It's not the Google form that's listed there. You'll get one from CCAR. Yes, Samantha.
I have a question. There was a slide earlier when you first started, and it had some information that I'd like to get handouts on.
Okay.
It was showing like PCOMS and don't run, call 911, overdose prevention and crisis intervention. All that stuff that was on there. I'd like to have handouts of all those. I don't see anything on that.
It was a slide?
Yeah, it was in the beginning. It was one of your slides, and I think it had all your information on it. But I'm interested in some of that stuff.
Oh, what, my introduction slide?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Well, so
Thank you, George. We gotta go, but thank you so much.
appreciate
Bye,
it.
guys.
See y'all next month.
Nice meeting you, Samantha. Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
Samantha, I've actually done webinars on those, and if you'll look at the CCAR training site, I believe they were recorded.
I hope so.
And if
I
not,
got a membership, so I'm just going through
yes,
old ones and just kind of doing them sporadically because I've got like my spirituality this month, and then I got professionalisms next month, and then I'm done. I've done everything.
excellent.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
trying to get my recovery coach professionalism. That'll be my next one.
Your CRP,
Yeah.
CRP or CPR? CRP, yeah. Oh, good.
Recovery coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
CRP.
Yeah.
For
Well,
RCP.
if you're really interested, there's information also on my website about PCOMs in particular.
Okay, and what's your website?
Broughtworks.com. So it's my last name.
Oh, wait a minute. Your last name, it's spelled Braucht.
Yeah, it looks a lot like this.
Broughtworks.
So a lot of folks have trouble pronouncing my name. So
I don't, yeah, I would too.
yeah, well,
Great, I appreciate that.
you're very welcome. I look forward to seeing you next month.
Me too, thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.